What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. Today, we will be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. Specifically, what we are focusing on is going to be a ZvT, Zerg versus Terran strategy, and we are looking at a Roach Doom drop off of 2 bases. Can be very solid. Roach heavy play becoming more and more prevalent for Zerg players. You're seeing a lot of Roach Baneling and Infestor play and then transitioning into the late game, but it can be very strong, and if the Doom drop doesn't succeed in crippling or even taking out your opponent, you can again work your way up into Infestors and continue along that route, but this is a very strong build. We're going to be taking a look at the different things that SCV Life does in this build and how he is especially effective. Scouting out at that Overlord Scout on Metalopolis or any map that has that close near possible air position, you want to send that Overlord to the nearest spot there. He scouted him out and then pulled back and is going to save this for secondary scouting later down the road. Now, again, Roach heavy play can be very, very strong. Roaches, especially burrowed Roaches, allow you to deal with Marines quite easily, and if you can catch your opponent off guard with those burrowed Roaches, being able to get right up under tanks and take them out very quickly as well. So I'm going to be going over the build order, talking about what you should do, why it's effective, and everything like that. Now, in this game in particular, what we did see is SCV Life opened up with 15 Hatch, 15 Pool, and then 17 Extractor. What's going to happen next is once that pool finishes, you'll be at 18 supply. You start your Queen, and then you work your way right up into the Roach Warren. We can see right now the SCV Scout has moved out for the opponent, so he scouted what's going on. Now, very important to note, SCV Life just opening up with these 2 Zerglings to start with. No reason to get much more than that. You're just using these for scouting purposes. Now, in spotting the Reaper, immediately coming out with the 1 Roach. And again, not overreacting, not making too much, but making just enough to survive. In fact, I can probably go ahead and slow this down right now so you can see the Reaper. For the Terran player, the main purpose of this opening Reaper, it's a Reaper expand build that the Terran opponent's doing, is scouting, trying to do a little damage if at all possible. We can see that Reaper hasn't gotten a kill yet, but he just did get that Zergling. But it's mostly scouting, and that's important to note. You don't want to overreact. If you see 1 Reaper, you don't have to make 10 Roaches. Very unnecessary, and it hurts your economy. And we can see right now, I mean, we're pushing up close to 6 minutes right now. And let's take a look at what's going on. We've got the Lair coming on through right now. And what else? Nothing. 1 Zergling, 1 Roach, and that's it. Now, this is something very important to know, and I'll go ahead and pay attention to this for a moment. The Overlord Sacrificial Scout at about the 6-minute mark is what SCV Life is doing. This is allowing him to see, okay, it was in fact a Reaper expand. I can see that expansion. But also looking at those production buildings, we can see 2 racks and 1 factory. Now, that's very important. This is a pretty good indication that there is going to be Marine tank play. If we saw 2 factories, we would immediately be concerned about the possibility of an opening into Infernal Preigniter Hellions. So that's something we would need to then prepare for. But seeing racks heavy and then a splash of that factory tips us off. Marine tank is probably what's going on. So again, what's happened this game? He built the first 2 Zerglings just for scouting. He saw the Reaper go out. He built the 1 Roach just to take care of the Reaper, but that's been it. There's been no other units built so far, just droning up. And that's really the trade-off. You have to realize that anytime you build a unit, you're sacrificing a drone as a result. So if you go very Speedling or Roach heavy early on, then your economy is going to hurt. If you can cut back on those early game units, as long as you're scouting and knowing that your opponent's not coming out with a push, then you'll be okay, because there's no aggression coming, as long as you're scouting that that's the fact, and you also have a strong economy, which will allow you to transition into what we're going for here. Going for a Roach Overlord drop, very costly, the amount of resources it takes to actually get those upgrades. So, requires you to have a strong economy, and you can only have as strong as an economy as you need to if you're not pumping out tons of units and wasting all your larvae and your resources early game on those. So again, scout your opponent, and if no aggression's coming, get that strong economy and you'll be all set. Alright, so let me pause momentarily because we're going to continue with that build order. So what we left off last with was the spawning pool finished. You built that Queen, and then that Roach Warren came right after. We saw the Roaches coming through. The Lair came at 36 supply. Now what's going to happen? Soon as the Lair finishes, what you need to do is Roach Speed right away. You start working on your Roach numbers. Around 7 to 9 minutes, if there's any timing pushes coming, this is when it will happen. So make sure that you've got plenty of units to, just in case. And if you see the push coming, then you can of course build more. And then you've got the Roach Speed. You start coming out with Roaches. The first big upgrade that you're going to be getting are those Ventral Sacs. This takes about twice as long, a little bit more actually, twice as long to research than the speed upgrade for the Overlords. So you start off with the Ventral Sacs, and then when it's a little bit over halfway finished, you go ahead and you start the speed upgrade. This is going to put them so that they both finish at about the exact same time. You can see now that that Roach Speed is in, those Roaches can easily defend with any scouting or any sort of aggression the Terran player may be pushing out with, and right now, there we go, that speed upgrade is coming through for SCV Life. So why is this build going to be effective? Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, Roach heavy play, it's becoming more and more prevalent, especially with the strength of Infestors against Terran Bio. Roach Infestor can tear through Marine Tank quite easily. You throw in some Corruptors or anything in there to deal with air, even just fungal growth is a lot of times more than enough. You don't see a lot of Hydras in ZvT, but it's mostly, again, just using the fungal growth and maybe some Corruptors or possibly even throwing some Mutas in there as well. Drop play, very, very prominent as a Terran player. Dropping can be very effective against Zerg if you're Roach heavy. No problem at all. You'll be able to mop up those Marines quite easily. So you can see right now, the Overlord gathering, the Overlord dropping has finished. The Overlord speed just finished as well. You're going to start loading those Roaches up into those Overlords and get ready to do that drop. The main goal is to take out any primary tech structures, especially production buildings as well. Start that Burrow Research, and then also go ahead and come out with those Tunneling Claws while this is taking place. Now, why this is so effective? One of the main reasons it's so effective, besides Roach play being more prevalent nowadays and being strong against the Marine Tank build, the fact that you're doing this completely negates all frontal defenses your opponent has. Your opponent, I'm pausing momentarily as this drop is taking place, is expecting an attack from the front. If you can drop inside their main, you bypass any tanks that may be sieged up here, any bunkers that are placed up here. I mean, look how vulnerable the main is in comparison. Now, Edge did come out with some bunkers because he did see that this Overlord drop was coming, but again, even with that said, yeah, he's got a couple, but he's not got a lot of defense up here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it back up, push play, and take a look at how effective this can be. Again, bypassing all of these bunkers up front, this frontal wall off, everything like that. You're right in the main. You're very close to taking out the attachments to these production buildings. Very, very effective. Stops them from building any Marauders to deal with your Roaches. Stops any research that may be going through as well. And again, a Roach heavy drop in the main can be devastating, and it by itself can almost be enough to force a GG. If you don't force a GG at this point, you can do two things. You can continue up with the dropping, build more Roaches, and segue them back on over, or you could also move on into your expansion. You can see SCV Life is getting ready for that, but right now he is focused on this Roach attack, and Edge is actually just calling the GG. So the advantage, Roaches being strong against the bio tank play in general and avoiding everything at the front. If he was going for more Marine tank focus here, he would have very well had a tank or two up at this point in the game, up defending the front. And again, that Overlord drop would completely bypass that. So let's go ahead and take another look at that build order. Opening up was 15 Hatch, 15 Pool, 17 Extractor, 18 was the Queen, 20 the Roach Warren. That's, of course, the Queen and the Roach Warren coming out basically as soon as that spawning pool finishes. All right, early game, you scout out with your two Zerglings. If you see any of the Reaper aggression, come out with a Roach or two, just enough to defend. And then keep droning up. At 36 supplies when we saw the Lair start to come through. Lair finishes. This is what the order needs to look like. Start off with that Roach Speed. Get some Roaches to make sure you can defend yourself early on. Immediately get the Ventral Sacs. That is the transportation for those Overlords. Remember, it's about twice as long. It's a little bit over twice as long as the speed upgrade. Once those Ventral Sacs are just over halfway finished researching, go ahead and come out with that speed upgrade for the Overlords. And then you can research Burrow. Get those Tunneling Claws as well. Start your dropping. Bypass the front when you're in the main, taking out depots, taking out production buildings and attachments, all very effective, and just bypassing the frontal defenses alone is enough to ensure that you're going to do quite a bit of damage. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed this Zerg strategy video. As always, guys, if you like the content, please subscribe. Thanks again, guys. Keep watching and keep owning.